Welcome to Belonging at the Top, driving performance through people. The podcast where leadership gets real and people come first. Your hosts are Dr. Natalie Parks, psychologist, behavior analyst, best-selling author, and your go-to expert for dismantling systems of injustice while building equitable, high-performing teams. And Anthony Butler, leadership coach, thought leader, speaker, and master of helping leaders unlock their team's full potential, one breakthrough at a time. Together, they're here to tackle your toughest leadership challenges with just the right mix of science, strategy, and a sprinkle of humor. In this episode, we welcome Amy Latta, the founder, CEO, and lead coach at Amy Latta Coaching. During the discussion, Amy shares insights on her personal and professional journey and the key moments that help to shape her views and influence her equal justice work.
Welcome to another episode of Belonging at the Top. We are back at Rung, and thank you to Rung for allowing us to use your space again. Anthony is in town once again in the good old STL, and we are super excited because we have a guest who is also a longtime friend of Anthony, Amy Latta. And she is an executive coach and a social justice warrior. So we are super excited to have you here today. I can't wait to hear all about your journey. So welcome.
Thank you, guys. Yes, and I apologize in advance when I call him Tony over and over again.
Everybody does. Listen, the rule is if you knew me before when did I start work? I don't know. If you knew me before 1998, I'm probably Tony. If you met me after 98,
I'm pretty sure I've known you since about 1988.
That's about right.
Yeah.
So not only did Amy and I go to high school together, but the three of us went to college together. You were a little late, but still, you're still a Truman.
I was.
So there's a lot of reunions going on.
A lot of reunions.
A lot of reunions.
A lot of connections. But I figure if you've got a good product and you're doing something good, why not bring your friends along? Especially when those friends are dope like you.
Thank you. I was going to say, to think we go that far back and we've been in all these places and yet here we are on the same table having these similar conversations of what's really important as we're sitting here in 2025 and looking at what leadership is about and where we're going and how we're getting there.
Which takes us to our first question that we ask every single guest, or at least, I don't know if it's a question, more of it's a statement, but you fill in the blanks.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your leadership journey. How did you get here? How did you become an executive coach?
And some of this I think you will know because you knew Amy back when. So I would definitely say that my leadership journey probably started when I was small because I had a lot of personality. I had what I call Amy Fire, but my upbringing squashed so much of that. So only my closest friends really saw
the fire. And let's be clear, that's the Amy I know. It was a firecracker. It was always.
But I was the good girl, so I was very.
I'm sorry. Did I laugh out loud? I am so sorry.
You can't take what you knew of me after school. So, but that idea of, achievement and a good girl sitting quietly, achieving the good grades. I grew up in a household that had a lot of volatility, so I learned from a very young age to not rock boats, don't say anything that could disrupt the equilibrium of the house, and I brought that in. But my friends behind the scenes, they knew, they saw it. I didn't know though. So Tony and I graduated high school in the late 1900s.
Oh no, not the 1900s.
And we went to what was then Northeast Missouri State, and I started to experience some leadership there. I joined a business fraternity, and yes, a fraternity, it was co-ed, Delta Sigma Pi, and I started taking on leadership roles, and I kind of became a new version of Amy, but it was still, I like to consider my journey as kind of like it's been a continual shedding ever starting, and I would say it probably started in college, because then from college I landed a corporate job. It's what I wanted. I studied corporate marketing. I'm working at the biggest PR firm in the world, and all of the leadership that I saw there, it's really interesting because I was thinking about this podcast. I took under the mentorship of older women, and this is mid-90s, so we're talking 96, 97, 98, and I could definitely see this is the corporate track that us women are going to go on and because the men are over here. It was really interesting to see the nurturing and the mentoring that I was given, but how little of what I actually wanted was taken into account. So it was, here's what you're good at, and here's how we can use you. So this is the track we're going to put you on, which is how I ended up being a meeting planner in the investor relations department and talking about earnings releases. And I'm already bored talking about what I did back then.
Like, that sounds nothing like
That
that.
was not me. I had fire and I had chutzpah, but so that was kind of my first test of leadership that didn't necessarily have my personal best interest in heart. No, and I will say that's been 30 years, and I don't know how if that corporation still functions in that way. But that was definitely how it functioned back then, and it didn't work for me. And I ended up. You remember when internet startups were all the rage in the late 1900s? I found an internet startup. They were hiring a marketing person. I was like, this was before the .com bubble burst. This was still when all of these new companies were coming up. And that was terrible and awful. The company did not exist much after I eventually left. And so I ended up coming back, and it was one job after another of having women mentors. And the next job that I had, I was being brought on in a supervisory role, and I happened to know one of the people I was supervising. I happened to know what that person was making, and so obviously I asked for more. Right. And I was told, what makes you think you have the experience to warrant that kind of salary? And I remember these were like pivotal moments of, wait a minute, this is a woman vice president telling me this. And I now can reflect, she had budget, she had whatever. But that wasn't the first supervisor and a woman leadership supervisor that I had that modeled kind of confinement in a box. I don't know how else to really describe it, but like it felt like I wasn't learning how to use my voice. I wasn't learning how to speak up. I wasn't learning how to become more of who I am as a person, what I could really bring to the table.
Right.
It was more of that reinforcing of making yourself small and fitting in. This is the leadership that was modeled to me through my 10 years of corporate, just over and over and over. And then it became 10 years later, and I'm 32 and getting ready to have my first child. And basically it was like, well, here's your 2 weeks of maternity leave. And, and again, so many corporations have since gotten a little bit better in terms of that. But it was just one. And they were all women bosses. So I really struggled to go, I just don't think this corporate leadership life is for me, because I just feel repeatedly that I am being shown that compliance, the way to succeed here is going to be diminishing yourself, making yourself small. And it was all, no one ever asked me what I wanted.
Right.
No one ever said, where do you see, not even just where do you see yourself, but what really lights you on fire? What gets you excited about coming to work every day? And so I left the corporate world. I was like, this is just apparently not for me. I stayed home with my 2 boys for quite a few years, and I have an older stepdaughter, and she lived with us for a while. And then I discovered coaching, kind of fell into coaching, and that led to online business entrepreneurship, to which this was the first time I saw women saying, you can have whatever you want. That we get to control our destiny. And what does light you up, Amy? What does look exciting to you? And it was the first time that I felt, so this is where I talk a lot of nuance. 2 things can be true at the same time.
Always.
So in this environment was the first time I started shedding all of those years of what corporate kind of had put on, what corporate had reiterated from my upbringing. Make yourself small, compliant, keep your head down, work hard, and eventually you'll get there. This was the first time I was in an environment that said, what do you want? What lights you on fire? And it was this is where I discovered the Amy Fire. This is where I discovered who I really was. And I'm internally grateful for that. And also,
Like,
also,
drop the bomb. That's right. That's what I
it
hear
was
coming.
very individual achievement oriented. It was very, which on one hand, I needed to see that what I personally wanted was important, but it was very, let's go get yours and let's hope that people behind you can keep up.
Right.
And I did not have the words to articulate. So this would have been my environment from, I would say, 2015 up until the spring of 2022. This was the environment that I was in. I was fully immersed. I was a top earner. I had my own coaching business, but I was in a coaching community of a variety of mentorships. And we meet up regularly. We all operated our own businesses. We were all our own individual leader, but what we were being modeled was very, it wasn't Nexium. I want to be really clear. Everybody was like, were you in a Nexium-like situation? I was like, no. No one was being branded. I didn't have to play midnight volleyball or basketball or whatever that weirdo was having. No, nothing like that, but it was very MLM-ish kind of individual achievement. And I couldn't articulate then, like I can now, of why I kept, do you know what I mean? Like when you internally or bump up against something, you can't figure out what it is. You feel it in your body, but you can't quite articulate it.
Right.
And also, this was the environment that, like,
you were thriving in.
I was thriving in.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was making multiple 6 figures a year in a coaching business that I was doing all of the selling. I was doing all the managing. I mean, I was CEO. I was accountant. I was running that whole business. What I never thought I was capable of doing in the past. And it's so weird to be so grateful for something that also you could see was actually replicating, I call it patriarchy in like a Chanel dress. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. It was the guise of white feminist achievement, but it was still modeled after go get yours.
Right.
Success looks very specific, and if you can't keep up, then that's shit.
It's your fault.
It was the words that I was always being told is they don't have a high enough self-concept.
Yeah.
It was we weaponize coaching language against the people who weren't achieving the same level. And then I kind of kept hitting up a ceiling, and I was constantly being told, I just don't have my self-concept turns out was frickin' fine. I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast.
We don't censor you.
Okay.
We might clean up the language.
Okay.
Some ums and ahs here and there, but we don't censor the language.
I like to drop more than ums and ahs. My self-concept, it turns out, was totally fine.
Right.
And again, it wasn't until I got out of the environment. I ended up deciding to step away and not renew my mentorships and stop attending the group gatherings, which does sound a little cultish when I say it that way.
I got out.
I got out. I kind of like to joke, I'm like, I think I was a Sea Org in Scientology at one point, because so much of my revenue was being spent on these mentorships.
Well, that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my mentors were making more money than I was making.
Because you were paying them.
Because I was paying them. And because it was you're making $400,000 a year. You want to start acting like $1 million coach. So you need to invest in this system. Yeah. You need to invest in this podcast producer. You need to invest in this money coach. You need to invest in this.
And it just so happens that they can provide all of that.
It just so happens they have the connections for you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm making a ton of money and it's all going out the door.
Right.
I mean, that's one small piece of maybe this leadership isn't quite leading me in the right direction that it should be. Right. But also, I was the one making the decision. So I'm always really, really clear that nobody had any ownership in my business but me. Nobody was running my business. All of the decisions were made by me.
Right.
And also, when everybody around you says this is the way to go, it's not easy to say, I'm not sure that's right.
And I feel like a lot of, and I've dabbled in or done some of those coaching for online businesses and coaches. Yeah. And because I come from a behavior expert, I'm always studying what are the behaviors that get people doing this. And what you're saying is every system that's out there right now, especially for online businesses. Yes. And it's this, I can coach you and show you how to get your business started. Mm-hmm. and those who find success. So 90% don't find success, but they also talk about that. Only 10% find success. And I'm going to tell you this up front because it's really the 10 hardest workers and the people who put in the time every day. And if you do this, then they will come, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But then those top earners are the ones who are now like, I did it. I have a very high sense of achievement. Yep. It was all me. Mm-hmm. And it was because you helped me and you showed me how. So clearly I must not know how to do the next step. And so you have to teach me that next step. And their packages just build and build and build.
That's exactly
it is the model that's out there. Yep. And I think, like you said, like you have the top earners who feel like you have to just keep going because everybody keeps going. Mm-hmm. And then you have also the people who never make money. And they, I think, both are left with this self-concept issue of maybe I'm just not working hard enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not whatever enough.
So when did you say enough? Right. So when did you figure out that this ain't working for me? I got to do something else.
It's so funny because at the time there were people who, have you ever been in a situation, I think everybody has, where like the thing that you're in looks one way and then you step out and it's like it picked up and it just shifted and it's an entirely new perspective. I experienced that in 2022. Okay. I wish I could tell you it was a financial decision more than anything that actually initially I was like, let me take about a year off of this continual. And I did. Right. I started at this level and then I graduated from there. I was in the top tier of my particular mentors. I was on the front page. I was, the first.
You were the person.
I was the first person you saw, or the second person that you saw on her testimonials. And I was like, I've hit this ceiling where I'm not getting the same return on my investment. And I don't think it's my self-concept. I think I got that down. I can't imagine. But financially, I'm going to need to step away. And that the reaction was terrible. It was the best thing that I'm legally allowed to say, is that the reaction was terrible and everything picked up and shifted. And then I experienced this really fun thing where people who saw it before I did were mad that it took me so long to see it. And the people who never saw it were mad that I dared to leave. And I essentially lost community. Okay. I had a couple of close people that we've stayed in contact with, but essentially from 2015 to 2022, that community that had held me up, that had helped me shed all of that and actually develop myself as a leader was suddenly gone. And that led to, and I'm very open about this, I've talked about it openly. It also coincided with late stage perimenopause, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, which apparently I've had my entire life, but I didn't know. And then I entered a depression of just like, my body was falling apart. My brain was falling apart.
What led me to you as a guest for the show, before you even said, hey, I want to be a guest, I'm like, oh, you're already on my list, was I think you took all of that experience about what you were going through, all that transition. Yeah. And then what came out of that was like this very fierce, anti-hate, social justice, like queen that...
Wow.
No, seriously.
And so on a card.
You should, because that's the leadership. Like when I think about what we talk about now too, is like your voice has been one that's been, and you can see as I'm hearing you tell this story now, like face to face for real for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's probably where she got this, that, and that from. So I think so talk about that transition though. How did you get to a point where you're like, I'm going to be open about my experience and then call other people out on their shit? Yeah. So that's the Amy I've always known. This new fire you found, I don't know where she came from, but she was always there. I know. So talk about like how you get then from, I've been through all of this, but I'm not going to keep quiet about it. Yes. And how I'm going to use it as a way to move community forward, to seek out equal justice. Yeah. So talk about that process, that thought process for you.
So I think the first thing is, like I said, it's taken a lot of therapy to say I experienced a ton of grief and it led to a depression. And I said, I felt very depleted. So I was that next year, I was still trying to continuously sell my coaching, but from a very depleted state. Right. And I made the conscious decision of I'm going to pull back. And I have a new newsletter and even having a section that says, and now we shut up and listen, because that's what I did. I was like, I hear the things that I saw, and I'm sorry, I keep clicking my nails on the table, so I'm just going to keep making that
sound levels are fine.
Sound levels are fine.
You're good. I'm monitoring them now.
I started noticing what were those things. I'm like, why did people not do as well? Getting diagnosed with ADHD, all of a sudden, oh, well, no wonder these things didn't work for me. They were never going to work for me. Right. I had nothing to do with my self-concept and everything to do with the fact that that way of operating
just doesn't work
for me. And then also interacting with people in direct messages and emails and really hearing some more individual stories of how other people felt left behind by me. I want to be really clear that I was also modeling this way because it worked for me until it didn't.
Right.
And one of the things that I was regularly, chastise is a harsh word, but I really do think that is that I was constantly being told I was spending too much time with the people who weren't making it. And I'm like, you're not coaching your clients hard enough was a frequent refrain. I needed to coach harder. And I was like, I really don't think that's really what's going on here. I think feeling like
I'm coaching hard.
I'm like really feeling like maybe this person's dealing with something.
Right.
That's not just a circumstance that they can thought work their way out of this, and that we can just be like, oh, well, let's troubleshoot that. No, I think. Right. So this is when I started being introduced. I wish I could tell you exactly what it was because I really don't remember at this point. But I can't tell you if it was an email, if it was a book, or what came across. And I started meeting online Black women educators, and specifically in anti-racism. And how that connected, I wish I could tell you exactly how it did. I had gone through a feminist coaching certification. And I remember some online coach said, this book is fantastic. And it was White Feminism by Koa Beck. Was the first of what is now, I spent 2 years not talking outward. I mean, yes, I was talking, but you know what I mean? They're like not preaching, not pontificating, and learning and deconstructing. And it started with that book. I still remember there was a chapter in that book I had to read 4 times because I could not understand what she was trying to tell me. But really what it was is because I had to dismantle the white feminism of individual achievement and really understand that how many people had I left behind in my pursuit of individual achievement. It benefited me so much, and yet it did burn me out. It did deplete me. It did deplete me financially. It did deplete me emotionally and all of that. Right. So maybe I need to rethink just how successful that was, but understanding that the way that I was taught to lead was still leaving so many people behind, and that by listening to, I say it all the time, I hear it all the time, listen to Black women. They've been doing all of this work without achievement in mind for forever. This is how they have survived. This is how they've kept their communities thriving and living despite everything that's going on. And so I shut my mouth and I paid for Patreons. I have a whole list of people that I started studying and listening to. And every time, if there's one thing that I will tell you that I've become a master at, is the defensiveness would come up. And then but I know how to sit in really uncomfortable emotion. This is something that life coaching did teach me how to do, that I did not know how to do when I was in high school, that I did not know how to do when I was in the corporate world, is how to sit with a really uncomfortable emotion and figure out what's really going on here. Why is this triggering me? Why is this upsetting me? And really learning that there were a lot of clients that I probably just wasn't listening to. They were telling me, but they weren't fitting the model of achievement. And so I was like, I just don't know how to help this person, as opposed to tell me more.
Right. And I think that's probably, again, I'm talking about leadership journeys. I think that's probably, sound like that's a critical point. Because I think one thing that people who are aspiring to be leaders, or people who are actually in leadership functions right now, is to understand is the amount of discomfort that comes with that. It's not just about the process and procedures. It's really being able to deal with that discomfort
Yes.
and be able to not only first expect it, be open to it, process it, and then still turn around and either use that as a way to embolden your team, to encourage your team,
Yes.
do something for your team. And especially when some of those things that you're sitting with in discomfort are personal.
Yes.
Right.
Not just the discomfort that comes from, it was a bad quarter.
Right.
The discomfort of, I'm dealing with grief right now. I'm dealing with loss. I'm dealing with adulting. I'm dealing with parenting, whatever it is. And it's still discomfort that leaders still have to know how to process. And I think, so I want to just highlight, I guess, your learning moment, your kind of aha moment that, I didn't have that skill as a coach. As a coach for years, I didn't have the skill of sitting in discomfort and dealing with that. And this thing we have to come back. So I don't want to.
And I think now, which is so funny, one of my taglines is everything you want is on the other side, the hard conversations you keep avoiding. And I am astounded at the level of achievement that I was managed to attain, avoiding hard conversations that need to happen. I don't have regret. Trust me, I did. Therapy does a lot of work to help you process. I coulda, woulda, shoulda. But now one of the current things that I do is I volunteer as a president of the board of a local nonprofit and the executive director. She and I have had a lot of hard conversations, and she told me up front she shuts down, etc. So I've really been able to put what I learned, understanding where I didn't. When I say lean in, I'm not talking about the Sheryl Sandberg kind of lean in. I'm talking about the leaning in to the discomfort that's in the room.
Right.
I never had bosses that did that for me.
Right.
I never really had. And then even in the coaching world, when I leaned in with discomfort, it was all, what you're thinking here. And notice how when you think that, this is how you feel. It was a very kind of cognitive behavioral therapy style of coaching. What you think is what you create,
Right.
Okay, fine. But I'm I got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, or this isn't working, or I don't feel like I'm being heard. And being able to lean into that discomfort, I really have been able to see just in the 6 months that we've worked together of her being able to say, she doesn't love uncomfortable conversations at this point in our relationship.
Right.
But she knows that when she has them with me, that we can have them and they'll be productive, and that we're going to leave both feeling heard and both feeling seen.
Right.
That skill, I would love to bottle it and sell it. I mean, that right there is what I specialize in, is how to really be able to identify. The first thing it does, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Tony, about feeling uncomfortable, and this is straight out of coaching, life coaching, of just expanding your emotional range, not being afraid of feeling any emotion and creating safety. One of my favorite things, and I was telling my son today, I put my son on a plane to go to England for a month today, and he was full of anxiety. And one of my go-tos of reminding myself is, I am safe even when I feel unsafe. That right there is something that I learned from a previous mentor. I really, when I talk about that dichotomy of the good and the bad, that changed my life, is that even if I feel unsafe and I feel very uncomfortable having this, I'm now having hard conversations with my husband. It's really helped with my teenagers. I'm having hard conversations with family members that I wasn't previously having. So this leadership work does translate to all parts of your life. But I can feel I don't want to have this conversation. Oh, this is going to piss them off. Oh, this is going to go bad. And I can just remember, I am safe even when I feel unsafe. Let's take a deep breath. What do I know for sure? Okay, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? One of my favorite coaching tools is catastrophizing. All right, and then what? Okay, and then what? And almost always, it follows out to, almost always you realize you're going to be okay. Yeah. But being able to lean in to the discomfort and be willing to have hard conversations, if we're looking at this from a corporate point of view, I know not a lot of corporations really want women coming in and rocking boats.
Not even women. I mean, it's not designed for that, right?
Right.
And most leadership training and development at any level is not going to teach you to invite those conversations. Right. Because depending on who's having them and their skill level, you're looking at an HR complaint or some kind of liability or EEOC, you don't know how they're going to respond.
Yep.
Right? And they probably have their own either undiagnosed, untreated, or ignored mental health and life issues that they're triggered as a result of it as well. So it's a difficult point. So I can see how a person in a leadership setting, typical leadership setting, is going to approach that with fear. Because they're like, I don't like, myself included. I used to say all the time, like, listen, the worst thing you can do is come to my office and cry. A crying woman would shut me down every time. Like, okay, there was a time I'm like, let me go find someone else to figure out why you're crying and what's going on.
Right.
Because I'll pat myself on the back. I knew I wasn't equipped to deal with it.
Yeah. But what if you were, though?
I was not.
Okay.
I did not have the emotional intelligence.
I know that, but that's not my question.
But what if
my question is, so what happens when we bring emotional intelligence into the corporate boardroom and we really train our leaders to not be afraid of emotion? And I'm not saying that you have all your employees are coming in and we're not turning these things, we're not turning these conversations into therapy sessions, but at least you felt equipped and emotionally intelligent to handle that and to know the next best step of, you know what, I really think this is more of an HR issue, but you can always come to me first and we will problem solve this and send.
Right.
But I would even argue like that skill, even outside of people who are having strong emotions in the moment, I've been in so many executive boardrooms where the leader is so avoidant of the difficult conversations. There also becomes this narrative of, I need to have all the answers, I need to be right, because difficult conversations aren't just strong emotion conversations.
No.
It also comes with being comfortable saying, I don't know, that's a great question, let me go find out, or here's how I would find out, or wow, that's really great criticism of this amazing idea that I had that I wanted to execute tomorrow, and now I can't.
Right.
That's a good perspective that I never thought about, and that's now going to cost some more money, but ultimately it will be a better product, better for the business, whatever. And so many leaders, I think we teach this narrative, and I love your story because you were so immersed in that narrative of like, you have to do it this way. This is what success looks like. And and part of it is kind of muting yourself. And part of that is making yourself smaller. And part of that is following the curriculum.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And true leadership is all about saying, I know what my curriculum is, and I recognize that it's not the only or the best.
Yes.
And I invite I don't know how I got a curriculum, but I invite others to help me build new, help bring theirs, whatever.
Yeah, and I do understand, like because it's been quite a few years since I was immersed in the corporate world, but also like I do understand of like, but this train has already left the station, we can't retool it, we can't whatever. But I just think about all of those projects that went to fruition that if only somebody had paid attention to this great idea back here, but and then so many things happen, and it's usually somebody who's afraid to raise their hand and say, I see something that I don't see anybody else pointing out. Maybe I'm wrong, and being able to empower people to be able to use their voice in that way, because this is sending something to product that has a major faulty error in it because somebody didn't feel like they could tell their boss, I don't know, I kind of see something here.
Right.
And I mean, that goes down to corporate culture. That's not individual leadership.
It goes to belonging, right? So I think that's, and actually there's something else in your last statement too, I think that people miss, right? We often, even people who don't buy into or appreciate or understand what diversity and inclusion initiatives were for and what their ultimate goal is, which we believe is to create belonging and safety in the workplace. But it is diversity of thought as well. So what's the point of diversity of thought if you don't have enough trust and belonging created in your environment that the people with that diverse idea, that new separate way of thinking, has the idea, but doesn't feel comfortable to express the idea.
Right.
So then all of your efforts around D&I are pointless if you don't create a sense of belonging to give people that psychological safety, that level of comfort to say, hey, I have a varying idea. It's a little different. Yes, it's going to cost more money, but this is what I
but in the long run,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And you actually kind of brought up scenarios that I have seen play out of the way that, going back to the way that women can really shift the way we lead is, if I was really modeled that individual achievement, let me get into the room and then I can bring your voice into there. A lot of times those great ideas come from the assistant who maybe doesn't have the degree, maybe doesn't have the whatever, but that's not indicative of the great ideas that they have. And being able to, I have a tool, it's actually a quiz that I offer where you can calculate your usable power or your political capital. Basically, and this idea came from, and again, I'm dropping books left and right. I learned about intersectionality when I got my feminist certification, but Isabel Wilkerson's book, Caste.
Yeah. Oh, great book, yes.
Yeah.
Such a fantastic book, and I really, because so many of us, and I'm going to say white women leaders, we see all the obstacles that are ahead of us that we really don't look behind us and see all the obstacles that we don't have.
Yeah.
Right? So your political capital or your usable power is the idea of what things do you have in your favor? We have proximity to power that other people don't, and understanding what our power is, particularly when so many things around us can make us feel disempowered. I want to help women understand the power they do bring to the table, because their skin color isn't an obstacle, or maybe they don't have a mental health, their education and all of these things are power that they can then use to say, hey, you know what, my assistant who doesn't qualify to be in this room because they don't have the right, she's got a great idea and I want to invite her to this meeting. It's a way of gauging when to put your leadership, when to allow to introduce some risk. What are you willing to risk for someone else and not just for yourself, so that the better ideas do get heard? Because
heard from the source.
Heard from the source.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's the key
That's
point.
the important part.
That's the key point, is that it's heard from the source. And so many times, the story is all this time, we've all seen movies and TV shows, right? Where the source is over here and this guy over here is getting all the credit. I haven't quite figured out how it's fleshing out. I have this project idea called Pass the Mic, which is really helping white women leaders who have proximity to power, who have access to rooms, to learn how to speak on behalf of people who aren't being granted access to that room. And also when that assistant is in the room, you're not speaking on behalf, you're literally passing the mic to them, so that when a mic is passed to you, rather than sharing other people's ideas, even advocating for other people, but sometimes we don't always advocate for what the other people actually really need.
Right.
Yeah. So this is where the equity and the social justice comes into play, into this having hard conversations and understanding the power that you have, is how can you use the power that you have not just for yourself.
Right. Yeah. Listen, I'm going to give kudos to Trey, because I know that hip-hop reference of Pass the Mic did not come from you. So I'm going to say,
it did.
I'm going to assign that. And for those listening, Trey is the husband at home, Trey Latta.
Okay. I want to make it noted right here that you are giving credit to my husband for my idea, when
that is very patriarchal.
That was the point. You don't see how that was tongue-in-cheek? It was okay. All right.
I called you out. No, Pass the Mic came from me. It literally came up in a conversation where I was trying to put language around what I would love to be able to see happen more often. I was like, it's like when somebody gets passed a microphone, and instead of hoarding it, you pass it on to the person who really needs to be heard. Yeah. I have told the story. Tony knows this story. I'll tell it really quickly.
Like which story were you?
Don't worry. These are stories that are fit for publication, I promise.
Okay, all right.
The first time I ever saw what was going on in my head, play out in real time was actually my teenage son. He was a senior in high school. We live in a local school district here in St. Louis called Francis Howell. We unfortunately make the news nationally every once in a while, and not for good reasons. So it was his senior year, and at the school board meetings, every school board meeting, one kid from each school gets to sit as a school board representative. And it just so happened that Sean, my son, who was 17 at the time, he got to go for Francis Howell Central, and it happened to be the school board meeting where the school board eliminated Black history and Black literature from the curriculum.
Oh, wow.
That was the school board meeting that he was the student representative for. So in the school board meeting, all of these people are coming up and they're giving their impassioned pleas, and they were just met with pure silence by the school board. Nobody was paying attention to anything anybody was saying. They passed the resolution, get to the end of the meeting, and the president, vice president, or whatever turns to Sean and says, "Oh, do you have a few words you'd like to share? Thanks for sitting with us." And my son said, "Thank you." I have video of this, by the way. It's so freaking inspiring. And he turns to them and he says, "I can't imagine what your reasoning, I can't claim to understand your reasoning for eliminating these courses today. But all I know is that I have benefited greatly from the diversity of this school district, and it has made me who I am." This is a white, athletic, intelligent, he is the poster child of white male excellence. And he turned to that board and said, "You're wrong. What you did today was wrong."
That takes a lot of bravery.
And they responded to him. They sounded like idiots. I want to be really clear. One of them even said, "Well, I'm not racist." Literally said that right there in the middle of the school board meeting, to which Sean said,
"But you're doing a lot of racist things."
You literally walked into what I just said. And I remember sitting there with so much damn pride, if I may say so, going, that's what I'm talking about. So I had all these concepts in my head. I've been reading all these books. I've been studying from all these people. I'm trying to process the leadership that I had experienced that didn't quite work. Was trying to figure out what this new thing was. You know how when your ideas are all like puzzle pieces in your head and you can't quite articulate them?
Yeah.
It was my 17-year-old son. I was like,
That's it.
That's it. That's what leadership looks like.
Right.
That's using your power, how much ever you have,
Yep.
and using it on behalf of people who have less than you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great example, too, of something we've said several times in the history of the show, that you don't have to have a title to be a leader.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to have age, experience, or a certain resume or curriculum vitae. All of that's irrelevant. It's about the action and to your point, using the power you have to benefit others.
Yeah.
I think that was a clear example.
Yeah, and your podcast, Belonging at the Top, well, I mean, if we are doing leadership that's individually focused and it's all about my career path, well, how are you going to find belonging at the top if you haven't bothered to speak up on behalf of and bring others along with you?
Right.
And I think if you want to belong, let's stop isolating ourselves in the pursuit of individual. And I know I'm coming across as very socialist by saying that, but just this idea, like we all come together.
We've had a series of socialist podcasts.
Really?
It seems to be
a socialist podcast hour.
Well, that's a lot of pushback I get a lot of times is like, well, but individual achievement, that's how I gotta pay my bills. And listen, did I mention that I put my kid on a plane to send them? I have kids in college, and I understand that we need to make money in the society we live in.
Well, yes, but I think the falseness of that is that in order for me to make the money that I want or need, to have the lifestyle that I want, you can't.
Yes.
Right? And there's this, I think that's where we see, especially in the corporate world, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, well, it's either you or me, but it can't be both of us.
Right.
And it's interesting because you have that, and yet corporations are trying to be more flat.
Yeah.
Right? And in the flatter corporate structure, you have less of that pyramid.
Yeah.
And yet, we're not teaching people how to collectively have those difficult conversations, bring the people into the room, pass the mic.
Yeah.
But in order, like ultimately, in a very capitalist way, if you want to cut costs and cut out all these levels and be a flatter structure, you have to start empowering. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, thank you for your time.
Yes,
you.
thank
Coming
you.
down to meeting us here at Rung. Again, thanks to the folks here at Rung. Leslie Gill and her team have been great as always. But again, thank you for coming in. I thought your story was one, especially someone in the space, in the executive coaching space. And I will point out, I think we talked about this earlier today, that it wasn't your educational path, right? That your journey has really, and I don't know, call it out because you didn't say it yourself directly, that it's not one. You don't have a degree in law or a degree in psychology or any kind of behavioral science. That your work and how you come to this point is really the lived experience. And it's your own critical thinking and analysis and putting in the work to get to that point, to this point, is commendable. And to the fact that you now take those learnings and you're sharing it with clients and your team, I think is great. So thank you for sharing that story with us. You were great, like I thought you would be.
Absolutely.
But no, thank you again. I think we've got some gems here that our listeners will really appreciate, especially those who are aspiring to be leaders who are not already in that role, to know that there's a path forward. So
there is. Absolutely.
Anything you want to add?
I would just say thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you. And always remember that great leadership starts with belonging.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Belonging at the Top. We hope it sparked new ideas for fostering belonging in your leadership journey. If you found it insightful, please like and subscribe to our podcast for more thought-provoking discussions. We'd also love it if you could share it with others who might benefit from the conversation. If you have any feedback or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please email us or drop us a note on Instagram or